Hello Serie A fan. It's crunch time for the Italians in Europe. As Juve crash out, Milan make their mark in Manchester, and Atalanta make their way to Madrid via Spezia. We chat about all that, plus looking ahead to the Milan-Napoli game, and Boaz joins a cold on this episode of Scudetto. Hello and welcome to Scudetto, your weekly roundup of top-flight Italian football. And what a week it's been in top-flight Italian football. Juventus crashing out of the Champions League, Milan getting their away goal this evening, and plenty more to talk about in the actual league. But first, let's catch up with the squad. Boaz, with the beer saga now concluded, what are you going to talk about in this section of the podcast?
Yeah, I'm kind of lost for words. Actually, this week I almost joined a cult, a kind of pyramid scheme / cult. It was good times. I went along with it until they asked for money. I wanted to see how low these people could go. Had I been a little bit younger or a little bit naiver, I might have signed up because they're really good at convincing people. And at the end of this long, crazy seminar, maybe they're actors, I don't know, but a lot of people were like, "Wow, sign me up now, sign me up immediately." And I was chuckling in the corner, and they were like, "Can you switch your camera on? Can you switch your camera on?" And I said, "Listen, this is not for me." And they've been harassing me with text messages ever since, but it was a good experience.
Sounds like a good use of your time. It reminds me actually of a really good podcast that I listened to. It was actually a little while ago, but it's about Trump University. Completely off topic for this podcast, but just speaking of pyramid schemes, it's pretty hilarious. It's called Behind the Bastards, and there's a couple of episodes on Trump University, which is just hilarious. Anyway, complete tangent there. Yeah, let's do the beer. Tell me about the beer, Buzz.
I'm drinking I found an Irish beer. It's O'Hara's, and it's a 51st State IPA. Should be good.
Sounds lovely. And Kenny, here you don't have a story for us this week, but you've got a beer at least.
I don't have a story at all. No, it's been a moderately good week, aside from the events of Monday night, which left me seething. But let's get to that in a bit. Yes, I have got a beer. I've got a Black Isle Brewing Company Goldfinch Organic Gluten-Free Session IPA. So Boaz was talking a couple of months back about thesauruses. It seems like they've got quite a few words into the title of that one.
That's not even thesaurus. They just picked random ingredients. How can we make this the most complex beer ever?
It's quite nice. It's not got a huge amount of character, but it's quite refreshing. So I'm pretty pleased with it, and I will drink it happily.
Its character consists of it going around parties and being, "I'm actually gluten-free, you know."
Very good.
How about you, Oscar?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't really have a story. I did go to an office this week, which is probably quite a novel experience for most people that have been in lockdown for a long time. It was a pretty empty office, but I just went there to pick up a laptop, really, and look around my new place of work. Or, well, I'm not going to be working there for a while, but my new office. In terms of the beer, I've got something which is perhaps kind of sacrilege for this podcast. I've got a lager, but I sent Kira to the shop. Well, Kira was going to the shop, as if I could send Kira to a shop. But she was going to the shop, and she asked what sort of beer I want. I was like, just get me a standard lager. This was not for the podcast. She came back with a very nice looking, it's called Bohemia Regent, and it's a Czech beer. It's a premium pale lager. It's very nice.
I'm not snobbish about lagers. I'm not snobbish about lagers. I quite like lagers.
Okay. The last time you had a lager, you
I'm the snob.
it as a lager. It's fine if it's cold.
Yeah. They definitely have their place.
Yeah. Well, this one's cold, and yeah, it's fine. In fact, it's better than fine. It's very nice. Yeah, we've spoken about beer for probably longer than we normally do. So let's move on to the football, and let's start with tonight's action, because Milan reserves got the job done against Manchester United, nicking a last-minute equaliser to secure the away goal, 1-1. Following on from a good performance where they beat Verona 2-0 at the weekend. But let's start with the United game. It's sort of the most immediate. What do we think, Kenny? Did they deserve more from this game?
Oh, I'm surprised you come to me first on this one.
Yeah, well, I normally go to Boaz first on Milan. I didn't want him taking all the good points, so I know you've watched it as well.
Yeah, normally Boaz is stumping ground. I think I said to you in our pre-production before this. Lucky Man United. Milan might have been the team that got the last-minute goal, but Man United have absolutely got away with one here. Milan were by far the better team, aside from maybe a spell before the interval and just after the break when United got that goal, which was a lovely goal, a lovely finish from Amad Diallo. But yeah, Milan absolutely dominated. They had what could very possibly have been a very legitimate and wonderfully taken goal from Franck Kessie chalked off. McTominay, for me, should have absolutely had a stonewall second yellow sending off. Milan could have had a penalty in this. Milan had goals disallowed for offside. It was all Milan. Everything was Milan. It was Milan, and the goal from Kjaer off the corner at the end was the least that they deserved. So I was really, really impressed with them, and especially, as you mentioned there, given how many first-team players out. I think Boaz said they had 2 available strikers for this game. So they had Mandzukic out, they had Ibra out, they had Rebic out. So what a performance to come to Manchester and be unlucky to go away with a 1-1 draw and an away goal.
Yeah, and plenty more to speak about in the game. But as you go along with that, do you feel pretty hard done by after tonight's performance?
Well, first of all, Kenny mentioned that Milan had 2 strikers, but it's worth noting that one of them was Emil Robak, who is a 17-year-old Swedish striker Milan signed as a prospect. So it's not like he was going to come on and make a difference. Had we been recording on Monday like we used to do, I would have told you guys that I could really do without this midweek game, and that, in my view at least, a match against Manchester United at this phase of the season is a bit too much for this squad, and that maybe focusing on getting that Champions League qualification and who knows, maybe pushing Inter all the way should be Milan's premier focus. But as you said, the performance from the reserves was fantastic and unexpected, and this follows a very good performance on the weekend against Verona, which we'll get to in a minute. But overall, it feels like Milan, with the exception of the little bump a couple of games ago, have come back to being that kind of fast-moving, direct team with a few players who are maybe not standout stars, but they're performing above their ability, and that shows on the pitch.
Yeah, and speaking of the Verona game, pretty solid performance away at Verona, 2-0 win. Anyone specifically that you wanted to pick out from that game that performed above expectations?
So as part of my self-appointed note-keeping for the podcast role, I've been going back and listening to some of our past episodes, and we mentioned when Milan drew with Verona at San Siro, we said that it was a good result and that Verona were a team to be feared. And of course, Verona also got a draw with Juventus just a couple rounds ago. But in this case, Pioli's tactics were spot on, and they didn't really let Verona get started at all. They were playing very direct, kind of getting the ball forward very quickly. And perhaps the most interesting thing, or the biggest highlight for this game, was the fact that the 2 goals were scored by players who, for a start, hadn't scored this season yet. So that brings it up to a total of 15 different players who have scored in Serie A for Milan. Only Atalanta have more players who have scored. And the goals were phenomenal. Krunic won himself a free kick on the edge of the box, and I kind of breathed a sigh of relief that it wasn't a penalty, so that the haters wouldn't be on Milan's back again. But it didn't matter, because he took a fantastic free kick and curled it into the top corner, and really unexpected, even for people who have watched him play. And again, as part of my note-keeping, I've been going back for episodes, and at the very start of the season, he came on, and I said that he's a liability. But in this game, he made a difference. And then Dalot, who is on loan from Man United and also played today, who has been kind of much maligned throughout the season, and fans have felt that of all the transfers, possibly he's the one who's been less successful. But he somehow he got himself into the area. He did one of these no-look shots, and he banged it into the top corner. So again, these both goals were well worth checking out. But I think the most impressive thing was how Milan dominated possession, how they chose their moves, and one man who also today, but in general this season, Franck Kessie is an incredible midfielder. He's for me, he has to be in with a shout for midfielder of the year.
Yeah, I would have said actually if we hadn't mentioned him, we have to give him a big shout out for the performance tonight because he was man of the match. The commentators here in the UK were saying, "Oh, he's been Milan's best player." I mean, come on, like let's not mess about here. He was head and shoulders the best player on the field for either side tonight. Fantastic footballer.
And in a sense, I was kind of worried that he would bring out an incredible performance tonight because suddenly the whole of Europe is like, well, who the hell is this guy?
Man United going to sign him now.
Yeah, he was kind of our little secret. And this year, especially, last year he was maybe slightly less impressive, but this year he's taken on the mantle of a leader on the pitch, off the pitch, and he's just the things he does. If any other player did that in front of the defense, I'd be screaming at him. But because it's Frank Kessie, you're just like, yeah, just hold on to the ball with 4 players around you trying to tackle you, no problem.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Moussa Dembele in his glory days at Tottenham Hotspur.
Italian media have been comparing him to
reference?
Frank Rijkaard, who's a former Milan great, and I kind of see it.
So the question is, Buzz, will a rejuvenated Zlatan after his time away at the San Remo Festival come back and lead Milan to victory this Sunday against Napoli? And in general, will it be the start of a fight back for the title?
So Zlatan was actually in the stands for the Verona game, and he looked pretty worse for wear. But again, his commitment to travel 5 hours for the 2 games midweek, despite being injured, was notable. I mean, I guess we could have all done without the circus of Sanremo this week for him, at least. But I think it worked out all right in the end with the results. It will be good to have him back on the pitch. More so, it will be good to have some of the other players who are missing, who I think Milan have the 3rd most injuries in Serie A this season. And the likes of Benacer and Calhanoglu are really important chess pieces in Pioli's tactical game. And right now they haven't played for a while. And as soon as they'll be back, I think Milan will start kicking on again.
Yeah, and that's probably the pick of the weekend games, Milan-Napoli on Sunday night. So looking forward to that one.
It's an interesting one because Milan have not beaten Napoli at home since 2014, and Napoli haven't won away since January. So, I mean, unless they draw, which doesn't really help either team, one of those records is going to break.
Yeah, and it's an important game in the race for the top 4, top 5 even. And speaking of which, we need to talk about Juve, who had a mixed week, I think it would be fair to say. Beating Lazio 3-1 on the Saturday, Morata scoring a brace, and then the midweek disappointment in the Champions League. They actually won 3-2 on the night, obviously, but went out on away goals to Porto 4-4 in aggregate. Buzz, does this mean the Ronaldo experiment's a failure? I mean, this is the 3rd season in a row that Juventus have been out of the Champions League before the semi-finals, and but that was the reason that he was brought to the club, right, to help them in the competition.
In one of our earlier episodes, we kind of joked that it's not your money when fans complain about the fees spent on certain players. Likewise, it's not your money when the club is making money on shirt sales. I don't really care if my club has sold 100 or a few million shirts of a player if we're not winning. And if you look at Juve's record before Ronaldo joined and their record after, there is a notable dip. For a start, they've never managed to get 91 points, which they did under Allegri the 3 years prior. And of course, they didn't win the Coppa Italia with him. And that's without even mentioning that they've been knocked out of the Champions League at the same spot 3 years in a row against clubs that, at least on paper, they should have beaten. Maybe Ajax are the exception to this list because you guys will forgive me as Spurs fans, but Ajax probably were deserving finalists that year in the Champions League. But
don't take away the best night of my life from me, please. Buzz.
I just think that game could be it's a bit tangential, but the Ajax Tottenham game could be played like 100 times, and I'm not sure that the same thing would happen all 100 times. But anyways, other than that, I mean, losing to Lyon and Porto is not what you expect. And Ronaldo, it's a shame to say it, but at his age, the money he's making, he's starting to be a bit of a liability. And perhaps it's not even his fault because Juventus signed him, but they didn't really give him the rest of the personnel that could help him in this quest for the Champions League that Juventus have been on for 25 years now. if you look at even the two finals that the Juventus reached in the Champions League, the midfield has changed completely since then. There's really no player, and if you compare the midfield today to the midfields that Allegri could field and that Conte was fielding at the beginning of this crazy cycle, there is no comparison, as I said.
Yeah, and I think it's a different thing to say the Ronaldo experiment has failed than Ronaldo's been a failure at Juventus, because clearly he hasn't, right? I think he's top scorer in the league or thereabouts. He was joint top scorer last I checked.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, but Juve have been disappointing this season. And what do you think is now an acceptable finish for Pirlo?
Well, I mean, a lot of people, including I think ourselves, made a lot of the fact that Inter went out of Europe. It's going to, we'll get to Inter in a bit. It's going to take a lot for Inter to let this slip. But Juventus don't have any other commitments aside from the Coppa Italia now. So who knows if they could do a late push for the title. Let's not write them off. But certainly they are hugely inconsistent, and the way things are going at the moment, they're not going to be in any danger of dislodging Inter. I think the thing is, Juve made a lot of the fact that this was a new cycle when Pirlo came in, right? And you have to factor that into the equation. So if you're saying this is an entirely new cycle, and we're going to bring in lots of young players. Historically, when has a team gone from one cycle to another and continued to absolutely dominate? I'm sure it has happened in the past, but it's very rare. And we're seeing the same with Barcelona at the moment, for example, in Spain. So I think, to be honest, if you don't enter into this season thinking Juve are favourites, then you have to say that Champions League qualification is perfectly fine. Anything below that obviously would be a catastrophic failure for Juventus. But if they finish second or third, I don't think that's a horrific season given in that context of between cycles. I do have a few things to say on the Porto game, actually. And the first is, what a game of football. Can we just acknowledge what an incredible game of football that was? Can we also acknowledge what an achievement it is for Porto to make it through that tie, playing an hour with a man less? But on the other hand of the story, can we also acknowledge the fact that Juve had a lot of players coming back from injury who didn't look like they had 90 minutes in their legs after the weekend, let alone 120? Can we also acknowledge the fact that Juve were incredibly unlucky? I mean, this game had everything. It had crossbars, it had disallowed goals, it had penalties, arguably, for both sides that should have been awarded. It had the red card that was spoken about. It was a game that had absolutely everything. And if Juventus had been awarded that penalty that I firmly believe they should have been awarded in the first leg, we might be talking about a different story. That's football. These things happen, to use a Pochettino phrase. That's football. And sometimes it's just the luck of the night. I think Juve, really, if we're honest, if we look at the chances that they created and how close they came to scoring on how many occasions, were very unlucky to go out. But they should be beating Porto. That, I guess, would be my final point. That, with the resources they have.
And you praised Porto. It's really worth praising Sergio Conceição, who, poor guy, no one wanted to ask him any questions in the post-match presser. Not sure what was going on there, but I guess the Italian media was waiting for Pirlo, and I don't know. I think he's on strike with the Portuguese media. So basically, he just sat around for 50 seconds and then shuffled off uncomfortably. But he's another one of these guys who played for Lazio and Inter, just like Simeone and Dejan Stankovic, who manages Red Star Belgrade, who Milan played a few weeks ago. But anyways, all of them played for both Lazio and Inter, and now managers doing pretty well. So something about playing for both those clubs and being a combative midfielder makes you a good manager.
Yeah, and Juventus go away this weekend to Cagliari Sunday evening, while Lazio have Crotone at home.
Inform Cagliari.
We will get to them. We'll speak about them briefly later on. First, we need to speak about Monday night, I'm afraid, Kenny.
Aye.
Unfortunately, Atalanta couldn't do their part for us in building the narrative around the title race that we wanted.
I know.
Losing 1-0 to Inter Milan, as everyone knows. Do you think Inter did enough to deserve the result here?
That's
What do you
an interesting way to phrase it. Yes, they obviously did do enough. They definitely rode their luck. I think Boaz said on the Twitter feed that we had going that champions do that sometimes. They definitely rode their luck, but they defended very, very well. It wasn't pretty to watch. It was kind of fun for the first 10, 15 minutes or so, actually, because you really had, I think, what a lot of us were anticipating, which was this high pressing Atalanta side winning the ball back high up the field. And when Inter could break that press, their devastating counterattacks, we had that for all of about 10 or 15 minutes. And then, to be honest, praise has to be given to Atalanta's backline, because we saw nothing of Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez for that entire game. I think Jim City, Toloi, and Romero, of course, how could I forget Romero, were absolutely fantastic throughout that game. I thought Atalanta were absolutely fantastic. It was, I just mentioned how Juve were unlucky. Sometimes it's just not your night. For Atalanta, it just wasn't their night on this occasion. I do think if you're a neutral watching that game, you feel like Atalanta were by far the better team. But it was to compare Conte to Mourinho again. It was like watching Mourinho's Inter. Really, they somehow you come out of the game and you think, how did they win that? But they had one shot on target. And they scored one goal, and that's all they needed. Atalanta, on the other hand, had a couple of balls cleared off the line, and a couple of very, very decent chances aside from that, but they couldn't convert them, and that was the difference. So yes, Inter had one chance and they took it, and on that basis, they deserved to win. But as an Atalanta fan, that's a really, really sore one to take, because that game was there for the taking.
Yeah. I think we were all a bit disappointed about that one.
I think that if the Juventus or the Milan management are assuming that Inter are going to run away with the championship, this score is maybe in the long run is actually beneficial to them, because it puts Atalanta a few points behind. But of course, the dream would have been for Atalanta to win and reopen the title race.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's completely done now? I mean, Inter's still got to play Napoli, Roma, and Juve. There's still a chance they could come unstuck, isn't there, Baz?
Everything is possible, but I fear to say that the way Antonio Conte has this team playing at the moment and the way he's developed a siege mentality, it looks like they're having a great time off the field as well. You see their social media activity, and everyone's loving each other. That comes with winning. You're having a good time, and winning breeds more winning. And every time this season that we've said, wow, this might be the place where Conte's Inter will stumble, they've come through. It's happened against Lazio, it happened against Atalanta just now, it happened in the derby. So unless they surprise us, I think this league is theirs to lose.
Yeah, and what we have to take into account as well is that Inter have the advantage of the direct encounters over Milan as well. So what is a 6-point lead at the moment is really like a 6.5-point lead. And I would also highlight Roma's record against other teams at the top of the table as being less than ideal. I think it's highly unlikely. Nothing obviously is impossible, but I think it's highly unlikely that Inter are going to let this slip now. Not only do they need to lose a couple of games, but if it is only sort of 2 games and a draw that they drop, which is very possible on their current form, Milan would have to win every single game. And now I think Milan were great earlier on this season. As Boaz mentioned, they've come into a bit of form in the last couple of games as well. But I think it's unlikely that Milan are going to win every single game. So all of a sudden we're talking about Inter slipping up 3 or 4 times. Really, I think it's highly unlikely. I dearly want there to be a title race. I think this is us getting into the end game. I think Inter are just pulling away.
Yeah, I fear you may be correct.
Some positive news for the teams occupying the top 4 spots at the moment is that in the past 5 seasons, of the 18 spots available for the Champions League, 15 clubs that were occupying those spots at this point of the season qualified for the Champions League. So, I mean, that bodes well for the at least for Inter, Milan, and Juve. And then the 4th spot can be that one of those 2 clubs that switches up and down.
Yeah. I think there's 3 spots in there. there's 3 teams fighting for that last spot, but it doesn't bode well for Atalanta, the record that you've just told us.
Yeah. And speaking of Atalanta, Kenny, let's just look ahead at their schedule for the next week. Friday night game against Spezia, which I'm sure we'd expect them to bounce back for. And then obviously get a few days rest ahead of the game against Madrid, which could be key. We obviously discussed their performance in the first leg where we thought they were really quite hard done by. And you'd expect them to put in a good performance.
Yeah, well, I guess this is as good a time as any to highlight the fact that Atalanta are the only Italian team left that are still fighting on 3 fronts. Obviously, they've got the Coppa Italia coming up. They're still in the race for the Champions League spot, and they have this game against Real Madrid to come. So that in itself, when you consider how small a club Atalanta are, and anyone who has followed Italian football for a long time will know that Atalanta are not they're not a regular even European. They're not even a guaranteed Serie A side. So that's an incredible achievement. Whether they can beat Real Madrid, I haven't changed my mind since last week or the week before, whenever it was we spoke about it. I think they can do it. I think they were the better side in the first leg, and Spezia are a potential banana skin, as we've seen their results against other big sides. So I wouldn't be confident to call either of those games either way. I think Atalanta will probably beat Spezia, and maybe we're in with a shout against Real.
Yeah, I contacted our Madrid correspondent Hector. Obviously, we haven't done keeping up with the Italians for a while, but obviously, as Atalanta are going away, just thought it'd be good to highlight for the tourists that won't be visiting that there's a monument called the Fuente del Angel Caído, which means the Fountain of the Falling Angel. It's the only satanic monument that's exactly 666 meters above sea level.
Wow.
So there's a good fact for you. He also said Benzema's been their standout player, and he was obviously not fit last time. I think he probably will be playing this week. So yeah, we all know how dangerous Benzema can be, but watch out for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I played the game in 10 men in the first leg, so hopefully that 11th man equals more than the upgrade of having Benzema fit.
They played San Remo.
Who played San Remo?
Atalanta played San Remo when he got sent off.
Oh, I see. Very good. And
slow burner.
Yeah. Inter, of course, face Torino on Sunday. Speaking of Torino, they had a rather interesting game in the relegation battle. 6-goal thriller against Crotone, but they lost 4-2. Also got a man sent off in that game. And Davide Nicol is now the 3rd Torino coach in the modern era to remain unbeaten for his first 5 games and then lose in the 6th. The other 2 are Walter Mazzari and Franco Scoglio. I am reliably informed. Torino now 18th with 20 points, but 2 games in hand over Cagliari, who drew 2-2 with Sampdoria at the weekend, didn't they, Boaz?
Yeah, while the Torino revival came to a sudden end, the Cagliari dream is still on, and this was a really entertaining game between Sampdoria and Cagliari with a lot of really great goals, if not some suspect goalkeeping. But Manolo Gabbiadini, formerly of Southampton, scored a nice goal from outside the area. And Joao Pedro, he scored as well, which makes him the highest scoring Brazilian in Europe right now, which will, if he stays in that position, it would be the 3rd year running that he does that. So I'm actually going to give him an honourable for that. But in the dying minutes, Nyangolan got a great goal from just outside the area. So as I said, fireworks all around. Probably doesn't help either Sampdoria or Cagliari, but good game.
Indeed. And that relegation race is starting to look quite interesting. It looks like it's going to be either Torino or Cagliari to take the 3rd spot. I don't think we'd get... Well, I think we would get very good odds on Crotone to stay up, but nice for them to get a win. In the other games that we haven't spoken about yet, we should mention Insigne's double and our boy Osimhen helping Napoli to beat Bologna 3-1. Roma also beat Genoa 1-0, so keeping the pressure on for the race for that top 4, top 5 that we've been talking about. I was going to ask you guys, how much of a difference do you think it's going to make that some of the teams are still in European competitions while others have crashed out? What do you think, Buzz? Is it going to be a key factor?
I think we're coming to the tail end of the season, so a lot of assuming that Milan, Roma, and fingers crossed Atalanta all qualify, I think at this stage of the season you're running on adrenaline and kind of you need a little bit of luck to get through games, and a moment of magic or a moment of brilliance can make all the difference. So I don't think at such a late stage it really will affect things too much. Also because it feels like Inter are running away with it. Maybe this will help Juventus a little bit, and maybe we'll see a resurgence. As I said last week, I predict Juventus will finish second, so this doesn't bode well for Milan, but we'll see. Juventus haven't managed to win more than 3 games in a row this season, so they need a swift change to put the pressure on.
Worth pointing out that at the time of recording, Roma are 3-0 up against Shakhtar Donetsk.
Fonseca said that he hates playing against his former clubs. Sure you do, but you keep beating them. So, I mean, how much, it's not that bad, is it?
Bittersweet.
Yeah, that is worth pointing out. The other games this weekend that we haven't mentioned, Sassuolo play Verona, Benevento, Fiorentina, and Genoa take on Udinese. We need to do good week, bad week. What do we think about giving good week to Crotone? I think it might be our only chance to give it to them. I'm not saying we should, but if we want to, it should probably be this week. They won 4-2. Any other nominations?
Well, you'd have to put Inter in there as a potential nomination, but they've won it recently.
We gave it to them last week, didn't we?
Yeah, they've won it recently, so I'm inclined to side with you.
If I'm slightly blindsided, I would say that Milan had a good week with the draw at Old Trafford and the win at what is normally a hard pitch in Verona.
Yeah. Who are we giving it to?
We could give it to Milan B team, I suppose.
Yeah, it would be. We have never given it to them.
It has been a good week for Milan. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but
since we have a Crotone referencing honourable mention later on, I guess we've out Crotoned ourselves in this episode. So let's give it to Milan.
Okay, right. You win, Boaz.
Yeah, fair enough.
The home of the Crouton.
I have to say,
be happy.
For the record, I don't have a problem with it going to Milan. It's been a good week. They were absolutely excellent against Man United. I only saw the extended highlights of the Verona game, but it looked absolutely excellent in that one too. So, yes.
Fair enough. All right. Milan reserves. Bad week. We've got nominations. I mean, obviously Torino, although perhaps a bit harsh given the extenuating circumstances that Boaz outlined. Atalanta haven't had the best of weeks.
I think it's a bit harsh given the performance of Atalanta in there. I'm not sure how they crept
just results-wise.
Just outplayed the team that are going to be crowned champions in all probability. Yeah. It will give you a bad week for being unlucky.
All right, fine. We've given Boaz one, so we'll give you one by not allocating. Juventus, obviously, they had that good result against Lazio, so it's hard to give it to them just for going out of the Champions League.
Although they were awful in the first half of that game against Lazio. Absolutely abysmal. They should have been out of sight by half-time.
I mean, just based on the results, obviously Sassuolo has to be a candidate, and they've been pretty bad for a while, and we've been kind of... I think they haven't won a game since January the 6th.
They've won one game against Crotone.
They've won one game. That doesn't count.
I think they've been awful since I recommended people start watching them, so maybe I should stay quiet next time.
I think De Zerbi's had so much praise this season, justifiably, and last season. But I think we need to be the ones that tilt the scales and offer a bit of balance. So I say we plump for Sassuolo.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Sorry, Sassuolo, you've had a bad week. That's pretty much all we've got time for in the main body of the episode. Just the honourable and dishonourable mentions. Kenny, you want to kick us off with one for Sportiello?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is from the previously discussed at length game between Inter and Atalanta, and it's for an incredible headed save to deny what would have been an absolutely phenomenal own goal by Romero, who I don't know what he was thinking really. Tried to it was a back pass, but it looked like he was trying to lob Sportiello, And when it was happening live, I thought the Sportiello had got back really well and tipped it over the bar with his fingertips. But then in the replay, it actually showed that to avoid the back pass, Sportiello acrobatically headed the ball away from going into the top corner. So, yeah, honourable mention for me for Sportiello.
I don't think that would have been given as a back pass. You rarely see them given.
I don't think so.
But yes. Okay, I've got an honourable for Marek Hamsic, who has signed for Swedish Allsvenskan club, IFK Göteborg. I've probably butchered that pronunciation. Not sure what he's doing there. Apparently they've sold out of season tickets already. Maybe he's like me, just looking for a quiet life in a Nordic country. Yeah, honourable mention. Kenny, you've also got a dishonourable or a sub for defending.
Yeah, I've got a dishonourable for the quality of defending in the Parma-Fiorentina game. So this was a 3-3 scoreline, which on paper looks like it was an absolutely exhilarating game of football. And, perfectly entertaining to have 6 goals. But I think every single goal in this game involved some comical defending in one way or another, whether it was a ridiculous handball or just like free header 5 yards out from goal, or just like complete chaos. I don't mean to sound like a doom merchant by complaining about defending when in a high scoring game. The Torino Crotone game that we mentioned before, 6 goals like this one, but 6 absolutely fantastic goals. This one, there were 6 absolutely awful goals, just like horrific defending. So I'm going to give dishonourable, and I guess this would count for, if someone was to be keeping tabs of this type of thing, this would count as a dishonourable for each Parma and Fiorentina.
Yeah, and speaking of that free, which was just banger after banger, Boaz, you've got an honourable for a speech at a music festival, I believe.
Clearly, because I was working a Sanremo, something that was based around Sanremo last year, I've been completely brainwashed and ended up watching it, and I'm humming the songs that I hate in my head when I wake up. That's how bad it is right now. But Zlatan's appearance at the festival was raised all sorts of eyebrows, and probably it wasn't ideal, as I said earlier, in terms of in footballing terms. But I felt that his speech that he gave on the final day was a really strong speech and something that is kind of inspiring. It was kind of misrepresented in the British media as it being all about him. But if you go into the detail, and I'm going to read it now, you get that it's actually kind of nice. He said, "Everyone before the festival knew who Zlatan was, wondering why Zlatan came here, because Zlatan loves a challenge and adrenaline. If you do not set goals in life, you can never win. In my career, I have not won all the matches I have wished for. Yes, I have won 11 titles, but I have also lost some. But I am Zlatan, even when I do not win every match, because we are primarily humans. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Doing nothing is the biggest failure. To work and make mistakes is not scary at all. If Zlatan can make mistakes, so can you. The most important thing is to work hard every day. Dedication and concentration are key. I'm here at this festival to tell you, but in your own way, you can be Zlatan. A special thanks to Italy, my second home, without which Zlatan would not be Zlatan." So yeah, a lot of talking about himself in the third person, but the core of the message is quite sweet, I felt.
We can be the Zlatans of
We're
Italian
all Zlatan,
football
guys.
podcasting. Good stuff. Yeah, speaking of people who've had a lot of honourable mentions and potentially quite high up the league table, which someone's keeping a secret from us, Osimhen, Kenny, is due another.
Yeah, I'm giving Osimhen an honourable mention for returning from that, what looked like a very scary situation, the head injury against Atalanta. It was his first game back, and he scored the finish perhaps took a bit of a deflection, but he really had no right to win the foot race that preceded the finish. So very, very impressive, and it's great to see him back. So that is why I'm giving him an honourable.
Yeah, no argument there. Buzz, you've got an honourable for Capello.
Yeah, I mean, we said that the Juventus Porto game was really entertaining, but perhaps even more entertaining was Fabio Capello's reaction to the game and some of the things that he said on air, which for a start, he said that when Cristiano Ronaldo turned around in the wall, he said, "In my day, you chose the players who went into the wall and they couldn't be someone who's afraid of the ball. If they were a pretty boy that was scared of the ball, you'd never put him into the wall. So that was a slight dig at Ronaldo. And then also for the past few games, Juventus have been sending Chiesa as their representative to the media, and as long as they were winning, people were saying, wow, they're giving him this big responsibility. But Fabio Capello rightly said, every time this team has won in recent years, it was always one of Bonucci or Chiellini or one of the senators that showed up. And now that you lose a big game, you send some kid out.
Yeah. I mean, is that almost a dishonourable for...
I like his fighting spirit.
Yeah, no, an honourable for Capello, but is it a dishonourable for the Juventus media team or whoever's in charge of making that decision?
I mean, he also sent out the player who was the shining light in that game for Juve. So, I mean, they sent out Chiesa. I believe it was Chiesa and De Ligt, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that's a bit of a PR exercise. You can't have too much of a go at Chiesa after that game because he was absolutely sensational. Yeah, maybe there was something in it.
And to be fair, Juve are said to be wanting to build their future on the likes of De Ligt and Chiesa. So it makes sense to send them out to kind of give them a bigger responsibility now that Chiellini is said to be retiring at the end of the season. So I kind of understand it.
All right. So Capello doesn't know what he's on about. Fair enough. Just joking. Kenny, you wanted to give your obligatory goals honourable. Who's getting it this week?
Yeah, it wouldn't be Scudetto if I didn't take the easy route and just pick some goals that I enjoyed for my honourable mentions. So in the absence of Rebic, your favourite, I'm giving one to Rabiot for Juve's first goal in their comeback win against Lazio. And I think it was Morata, actually. I was going to say it was Chiesa, but it was Morata who played the through ball. But yeah, he really, really tight angle, and he just absolutely rocketed the ball into the near post roof of the net. You might say that Pepe Reina should have done a little bit better, but to be honest, I just think it was struck with such ferocity and such venom that he didn't really stand a chance. And the other one's to Insigne for two very, very decent goals in Napoli's win as well against Bologna. So those are my obligatory goals, honourables for Scudetto this week.
Yeah, it was Rebic-esque, wasn't it? I just wanted to give an honourable to Harry Maguire obviously he's been listening to our podcast. He wanted to get in on the Gagliardini challenge, and
who would have thought?
I mean, he may well win it. He's not eligible for it, but he might win it anyway because that was just a spectacular miss. I don't really know how to describe it other than he was in front of an open goal and he hit the post
from about 30 centimeters away.
Yeah.
I think the one saving grace for him is that Donnarumma got a touch to it. But I mean, that's not, it was still an absolute shocker. And it would have been a very strong contender. Maybe it will be a very strong contender.
And Boaz, just a couple more honourables on your side. Firstly, for Cosme.
Yeah, Cesare Cosme is kind of a throwback to 90s Serie A, and he was famously the manager of Perugia under Gaucci in a very tumultuous period in Italy, and actually he got them to Europe and quite far. But always a weird character, or a colorful character, I should say. He's now taken over Crotone, which raised a few eyebrows, but he got a win, and of course he was very happy with that. He's said to be annoyed that he's been snubbed by Serie A clubs for this long. This is the guy who, when his Perugia side lost to Lazio, he shouted Forza Roma to the Lazio fans as he was going off. So generally, this should be fun, regardless of how Crotone do from now on.
Yeah, you've written here a less sophisticated Big Sam. I think even Big Sam would struggle to keep them up this season, but we will see. Anyway, Antonio Conte thought he'd avoided this section. He hasn't managed it. Baz, what have you got to say about him?
Well, this is actually honourable for my good friend Tony Count, and he was seen in after the game against Atalanta. He was boasting in the mix zone that, hey, we played well, and no one picked up any yellow cards. To which De Vries, who was just behind him, was like, boss, actually, you got a yellow card, which prompted laughs all around, and Antonio Conte saying, oh, I'm so stupid. I was the one who got the yellow card. And then obviously he said, I'd rather get 100 yellow cards myself than the team get any. As we said earlier, winning Conte means a smiling Conte and a funny Conte, evidently. So there is a silver lining, I guess.
I think if you got 100 yellow cards, you'd probably be facing like a long-term ban. So I'm not sure that's actually technically correct, but appreciate.
I may have exaggerated his quote a little bit, but in any case, yeah.
Anyway, that is all we've got time for this week. Please do subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your audio. We'll speak to you next week. Until then, enjoy the football.
Che sta decretando lo scudetto del Milan in questo preciso istante. La Juventus è campione d'Italia questa data, il 6 maggio.
Di anticipo, la Roma è campione d'Italia per la stagione 2000-2001. Il titolo